Since the beginning of the COVID-19 health alert in March 2020, a lot of positive COVID-19 case has been reported in Mexico. To summarize the current evidence, we present a review of the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the mental health of the general population. It's vital to recognize that scientists' information about the coronavirus is constantly changing. An increase of confirming cases and deaths has been reported, and psychopathology problems like anxiety, depression, and stress has been increased.
Talking from the justification as part of the academic training for students, an integrity project is required to integrate the knowledge acquired during the school year. One of the determinants for selecting this subject is current the problem that mental health issues represent to public organizations. Now, talking about the methodology and materials, the updated literature was systematically reviewed using scientific medical databases and academic Google. We include articles with scientific relevance in addition to establish dates from 2019 to the current date, and we revise impact level as well as indexed journals. We work with the supervision of Mr. Vladimir Romero Garcia, doctor and professor of the medicine faculty of the Durango Santander University. Finally, the objective is to successfully accredit the requirements established by the institution.
Species pathology of SARS-CoV-2. The coronavirus is a coronavirus family which have a ribonucleic acid in a positive, non-segmented, and large sense. It has been known to infect the respiratory tract, gastrointestinal tract, and nervous system. COVID-19 has two interrelated pathology processes. One, direct cytopathic effect that predominated in the early stage of disease, and the irregular inflammatory response that predominates. The overlap of these two pathologic processes result phenotypically in an evolution in three stages. Stage 1 is the result of viral replication that conditions the direct cytopathic effect and activation of the innate immune response and characterized by clinical stability with mild symptoms. Stage 2 activation of the adaptive immune response resulting in a reduction in viremia but initiated inflammatory tablet of causing tissue damage. Stage 3 characterized by fulminating multi-organ insufficiency with frequent worsening of lung engagement. The International Labour Organization states, in addition to begin the great public health and economic and social strength engage the long-term livelihood and well-being of millions of people. Studies have shown that between 10 and 35% of SARS-CoV-2 survivors had symptoms suggesting anxiety, depression, of poor during the early recovery phase. 44% of survivors with some form of psychiatric disorder had a depressive disorder. Mental health in the general population. Problems such as home isolation, fear of contracting illness, and uncertainty could cause people deploying feelings of fear, anxiety, sadness, suicidal thoughts, low motivation, increased tobacco and alcohol use, etc. The outbreak of SARS-CoV-2 in the world caused great alarm and stress in the general population. The fear of disease caused an increment in misinformation and meetings on social media and media. The gatherings and rampant rise in people with excessive of fear of getting sick.
Mental health problems arose during the pandemic. To first, we had anxiety. This takes place when some changes or bodily sensations are interpreted as symptoms of disease. It's chased by catastrophic interpretations of the essentials and body change dysfunctions they believe about health and disease and poor adaptive mechanisms. With the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, people with high levels of anxiety can interpret themselves like they are infected, but it's not, and just this increase their anxiety. However, people with health anxiety take them to action which carries spelling consequences for the individual and their community. On the other side, low levels of health anxiety could be beliefs they can't be infected and failed we save them. Another mental health problems we have the depression, and the people that suffer depression by the COVID-19 they feel an anger, sadness, and disenchantment, which could lead on the event of the pathologic. The the medical staff should be trained to speak bad news properly and report a negative impact on relations. It's important several studies have documented that doctors haven't received formal training to speak bad news. It is important that in the clinic and they understand the similarities and difference between COVID-19 symptoms and the depressive episode. Symptoms like fatigue, sleep disorders, appetite disorders, reduced social interactions, and loss of interest in usual activities are seen in both depressive disorder and viral infections. Steroid reaction using a Chinese study of 52,000 people during the initial phase of the pandemic, they found that 30% participants they experiment the stress with high levels in the women. Additionally, people between the age of the 18 and 13 and people over the 16 they have high levels of the stress. The various scores with 18 to 13 years old be because they use the social media and their impact on the college students. The important thing about this study is that the difference between the women because their gender is more symptoms of the hyperactive, recurrent and distorting memories and negative cognitive and mood.
Mental health with patients with previous mental illnesses. The COVID-19 pandemic global case has focused on infected patients and frontline health personnel. The effect of pandemic of people with psychiatric disorders is worrying, ignoring the differential impact of pandemic of these patients hit any goal of preventing future spread of the disease and increment existing health inequalities problem with parenting with pre-existing mental disorders included. 1. Mental illnesses may increase the risk of infection due to cognitive neglect, low risk awareness, and a few personal patient protection efforts. 2. If a person with mental illnesses tests positive COVID-19, they will have more barriers to equitable access to health services. 3. The COVID-19 pandemic also caused reactive symptoms such as stress, depression, and anxiety.
The health emergency that our country is currently in place for has been a determining factor in triggering mental health problems in all types of populations. According to the revised evidence, it has been shown that during the initial phase of the COVID-19 pandemic, the presence of anxiety, depression, and stress reaction in the general population was common.